Thanks for joining us as we examine why Kingdom of Heaven's view of the Crusaders might surprise you, otherwise known as
what the movie Kingdom of Heaven did not tell you. And there is a lot. I mean, there's a lot.
That's right. My name is John Newton, science fiction author, and I'm joined by
Eric from Your Brother in Christ. I'm a Christian apologist, focus on polemics and evangelism.
So that's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful.
So by saying the Kingdom of Heaven, that phrase, we're referring to the 2005 movie starring Orlando Bloom, Eva Green, and Liam Neeson, and directed by Ridley Scott. We're not talking about the phrase that Jesus used in the Gospels, the Kingdom of Heaven. I'm going to make a real quick comment about what that is. You got Kingdom of Heaven and Kingdom of God, and there's a little bit of confusion of why that is. Some people say they're different things, but most recognize the fact that the author of Matthew, who was Matthew, was Jewish, and he was speaking to a Jewish audience, and they were very careful about speaking the name of God. So they often had something in as a substitute for it. So when he is saying that Jesus is speaking, he says the kingdom of heaven instead of the kingdom of God. But that's not what this movie is about. No. In 2005, this movie came out and shined light on the fall of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, which was a Crusader kingdom in 1187, I believe. So the movie's title can be a little misleading, but we're going to look at some other things that is misleading about altogether and give it an overall review from a theatrical standpoint. Before we get started, I am going to plug the novel that came out last week. Now, if you enjoy historical movies, especially during the Middle Ages, you might enjoy this novel. Now, this is concerning what was going on in Spain during about the same time, just like 30 years after this movie took place. 30, 40 years. Yeah, about 40 years after this movie took place. So it's really within the same time frame. This novel came out last Thursday. It's a science fiction, historical, Christian / fantasy novel. And I'm amazed I want to thank you guys for your support because it's reached number 5. I think currently it's number 8 in 3 of the categories that it's in. It's also a top new release. So I want to thank everyone who participated in doing this. And if you haven't got it yet, you might really enjoy it. So it's a good novel.
I got my copy.
You got your copy, huh?
I need to make a post about it. I keep forgetting to do that.
That's cool.
It's on my to-do list.
So the Kingdom of Heaven, the movie that came out in 2005. Let's take a little bit of a look at it. We're going to be doing this live stream a little bit differently today. We're not going to be looking for Christian themes like we usually do in movies.
Though you might be kind of hard pressed for this one.
Well, yeah, this one's it's a different character. It's a different movie altogether. So we're going to do a spoiler-free review very quickly. We're going to do a theatrical review, which is going to be spoiler-filled, and then the bulk of what we're going to be talking about is where the movie is wrong, historically speaking. Now, I've got to put a bit of a disclaimer in there. Whenever you're writing a fictional account of an historical event or several historical events, there's going to be some liberty in there, some creative license to make some changes to make the story more enjoyable. The question is, how far does it go? And is there a particular bend or bias that people will have walking away from a movie or a book thinking that this is how things were back then? And if you're a student of history at all, you will probably see some errors that were made in this. And I'm going to say you're smiling.
Some.
There are some errors, like
there's just some Godzilla in the last Godzilla movie. There's just some.
Yes. So
I'm just saying
we will be taking an extended look at that. My intention was to make this a quick review, but the more we looked into it, the more I thought, I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible and touch on some of the key points. I'm also going to be taking a look at the chat to see if there's anything that you guys want to bring forth if you had seen this movie, what your impressions were, and any comments that you have in this as well. And we're especially going to be taking a look at the Christian perspective, the Muslim perspective, and there's some Jewish perspective in here as well. What was the true history behind it? So the Kingdom of Heaven is a 2025 movie that was directed by Ridley Scott, and it's vaguely historical epic set during the Crusades, primarily focused on the events leading to the fall of Jerusalem to Saladin in 1187. The film follows Balian, played by Orlando Bloom, a blacksmith from France who, after the death of his wife, discovers his noble lineage and travels to Jerusalem seeking redemption. Once there, Balian becomes involved in the political and religious tensions between Christians and Muslims. He is thrust into a leadership role, defending Jerusalem against Saladin's forces while grappling with the questions of morality, integrity, faith, and the consequences of religious fanaticism. The movie portrays a complex character such as the leper, King Baldwin IV. He's probably one of my favorite characters in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's such a noble guy. And Saladin, who is also portrayed as being very noble, and examines themes of honor, peace, the futility of war, and bending some historical events, bending and blending them with dramatic fiction. So
blender into a blender,
into a blender, right. And it all comes
throw
out.
Throw them in there into a blender.
So, spoiler-free review. Okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, what would you rate this movie?
1.
1! Oh, man.
Solid 1.
Have you ever... Oh, man, there's going to be a difference between... Sometimes we're right on. We never discuss this ahead of time.
I've not ever given
given a 1?
I don't think so. Not on this show.
I think I've given a 3. I don't know if I've ever gone much lower than that.
Bad one. And what's so bad is I actually enjoyed it when it came out.
Yeah, but
then again, I don't know. I didn't know what I know now. So yeah, I didn't know all the ins and outs and what historically actually happened and what it was.
So before I give it my numeric review, why would you give it a 1?
Horrible history. Horrendous history. Horrendous portrayal of Christians.
Okay.
It gives a good I mean, seriously, the Leper King is seriously the only good Christian in there, in my opinion.
I would disagree. I think there's some others. Now there's some that even a priest says religion is bunk in this, but I'm not sure if he's talking necessarily.
Is that the one that said let's convert to Islam and then let's just
no,
because they got a priest doing that.
No. Oh, golly, who was that? I don't know. I do not have the full cast here, so I don't know if I see. I think it's Michael Sheen. Might be he plays just as priest. It doesn't actually give a name, so this is not and this list of the cast here is not a very good list.
No.
It's not comprehensive at all because it doesn't show who plays Saladin. It doesn't show, although he doesn't have a whole lot of screen time. It doesn't show some other key players that are in there. But I would disagree with you a little bit. I think they did show some others in a good light. They definitely did not show the Templars in a good light. We're going to get to that.
Templars were not in a good light. The Muslims, though, with the exception of 2 people, were all good.
Yeah, and we're going to take a closer look at that when we get into the historical part of it. So that is basically why you would give it a 1.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Solid 1.
So I would give it a 7, believe it or not. And I'm looking at mostly from a theatrical standpoint. I thought that the performances were well done. I didn't see any problems with that. As far as the historical look, it looked like things were accurate as far as that goes with Jerusalem and the outlying areas and the type of weapons that were used. As far as I can tell, it looked like that part was historical. then they really, I probably should give it a low rating because it was so bad historically. But
yeah, by the end of this, you're going to be agreeing with me.
I don't know. I might move it down.
It's going to get closer.
So just from a theatrical standpoint, I thought it was 7. There were some pacing issues involved with it where it did seem slow in areas where it could have been brought. And also the focus was so much on the main character who Balian, who goes through his journey, which is really totally made up. There is a character who is Balian, but we'll get to the background of who he was later.
Not the same character.
No, not the same character
close.
at all. Okay, so that gives you an outline of. I'm going to take a look at the comments here before we move on to the next section to see if anybody else has similar feeds, if they're more towards you on the rating or if they're more towards me. Let's see. It says, I've never watched a whole Ridley Scott movie. I can't bring myself to do so. He bores me. Well, I would.
They had an intermission. It was weird. They had an intermission in the middle of this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't see the version with the intermission on it.
I don't know. I got the theatrical, so it must have been in the theater. They gave an intermission.
Okay.
In the middle. It was really, I mean, it's a throwback.
Okay. We saw the director's cut, so I think it was a little bit different. But it was more, I think, more than 2.5 hours? It's definitely over 2 hours.
3 hours.
Oh, wow.
It's a long movie.
It was a long movie.
Elle was like, is it done yet? Is it done yet?
I'm
tired of them telling me how bad Christians are.
He says, surprise, Ridley Scott, the man sees good and just veers away. And then it says, well, I agree with the historic. It says 1. Wow. It's talking about your response.
I don't hold back.
He said, I agree with the historic, but at least give a few points for Ed's performance and visual beauty of the movie. It was. I thought it was
I would give him points for that, but again, because of how they portrayed Christians in it.
You must be giving him negative points then to end up with.
I got to balance everything.
It was a 9, but it's totally obliterated.
I mean, if we went through, like, okay, theatrically, what was it rated? You know, the beauty of it, how are the shots taken, that sort of stuff, that would be different, but that's not. The main message of this is, in my opinion, such poison.
He says, I get Eric's frustration. All the villains were two-dimensional. Yes, especially the leader of the Templars and who ends up being, and what was his name? He ends up being the king, is Guy, Sir Guy. Ends up being the king of Jerusalem for a short amount of time. He was very one-dimensional. And if you've seen the movie Timeline recently, I think there was like 4 or 5 main characters that were in that show that were this. I'm thinking, wow, I recognize him.
Quite a bit of crossover.
Yes, quite a bit. And it's the same era that they did, I believe, both movies. Ridley Scott needs Jesus. The man is just so dark, definitely. And Orlando Bloom was dull in the role.
I'd say he was, It was very flat. I'm not sure how much of that is cut up to the writing or how much of that was...
Could be the directing, too.
Could be the directing. This wasn't early in his role because, I mean, when he did Legolas, he is really good acting. Pirates of the Caribbean, I thought he was really good in.
Well, you see more of a range of emotions in those movies.
That's true.
Not so much as Legolas. He was more like a Vulcan in that one, but definitely in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, this one was just.
Yeah, I was waiting for him when they had the siege of Jerusalem, and he's on the wall. I kept waiting for him to throw his shield down and go surfing and start.
I would have given it a 2 if you had done that. That would have been funny. At least there would have been some humor. This is very dry.
Yes, I would agree. Okay. So, spoiler-filled review, and we're just going to take a real quick look. We already talked about some of it from a theatrical standpoint. If you have not seen the movie and you would like to, we're going to get into spoiler territory with this. This is a 20-year-old movie. I don't know. I would stick around even if you haven't seen the movie. I think that what we're going to be covering is it's not so much we're going to be spoiling the movie because this is supposed to be following historical events.
It's an old movie too.
Well, that says at 20 years. So I think
I'm like, I think
it's
it's
not
out when I was
that
15.
old. Yeah, it was like yesterday for me. So the you really got me.
Now I get your walker for you. I need to walk. Hey, we need donations for a stroller for him. He needs a stroller.
I need to drink out of my popcorn cup after that comment. That was brutal. A little bit of recovery time. So, yes, what was the good and bad of the movie from a theatrical standpoint? I think we pretty much covered that already. The general takeaways would be that I think the negative would be pacing with it. Maybe, like you said, with Orlando Bloom's portrayal of Balin, it being very, very just kind of flat. Not a whole lot of. I think you're talking about emotion.
There are also sections in the movie that made no sense.
Like what?
Very early in the very beginning of the movie, you have Orlando Bloom's character come up and join up with his father,
correct,
and his group, and then the guys are sitting there, and for some reason, this guy gets shot with an arrow through the eye.
That was because basically the sheriff came over and said, this guy committed murder. We're after him.
Yeah. But the guy that got shot didn't have anything to do with that.
They were defending
him. He was chilling over there. No, this was beforehand, because then the sheriff came riding up and said, we're going to take him. And they're like chilling, talking. Oh, no, I'm not going to let you. Okay, let's do this.
I think you got the sequence is wrong. They started firing up.
It.
Okay.
It was weird.
So we have a disagreement. I could relook at the movie afterwards, but I think the sequence was different. Either way, I think that I would agree with you on his motive. Basically, his wife dies. He's told that she committed suicide out of grief for loss of their child, and told by the priest and others that she is basically in hell because she committed suicide and she's headless. And this priest is just really callous.
His brother-in-law, by the way.
Was his brother-in-law?
It was a brother-in-law sister. His sister is the one that committed suicide. He was not supposed to cut off the head of the woman, although he did it in spite of being told by the clergy not to do it.
Okay.
And he disfigured the body, told the priest, oh, no, I definitely didn't do that. And then went over and said, hey, she's in hell. And I just cut off her head. Yeah, okay, yeah. The guy kind of kills him. Okay, not the right reaction.
So he pushed his buttons. Balin freaked out, killed the guy. But then the problem that I have is I think that all kind of makes sense. And then he's on the run. But there's not enough time. He goes to chase down his father and says, I must find redemption. I don't think there's enough time there for the real feeling of remorse that he shouldn't have killed the guy. I don't know, maybe immediately afterwards he's feeling guilty for killing a priest.
First of all, he is classified at that point as being kinslayer because that was kin. On top of that, I can understand we want to get you out as fast as possible, go chase down these people, but it really confused me why that was even really needed.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like that wasn't needed. I mean, the brother-in-law could have been compassionate and basically said, hey, I set this up. This is a way out. This is a restart for you.
Okay.
This is really what you need. Definitely with the loss of your family. There's nothing here for you. The ruling guy is going to kick you out.
Yeah.
And then at that point, have the drive to, okay, I need to leave. And then because the whole I'm going to seek forgiveness thing is about his wife more than about the murder he did.
Okay.
So
there was also issues later when there's a big section of the movie that was spent on character development of Balin. Once he gets to Jerusalem, there's time spending with him digging a well, and he gets the people behind him. I would think if I were to cut anything, I would be cutting that. Now, maybe that was in the theatric version that was cut, and the director's version that still stayed there. But it seemed like there was a lot of pacing issues with the movie on unnecessary time developing his character. You didn't need to. He's already established as being noble for other reasons.
Yeah, he's already established as being noble, although he did just kill someone in cold blood out of anger, granted incitement, but out of anger nevertheless. Yeah, there wasn't. I don't think there was much need for it, but in the travel to there, we do get our first view of Muslims who are there, and it's introduced by the guy who plays the villain in Timeline. That character introduced that these Muslims just worship the same God we do, and it's great that they are allowed to be here in Europe praying.
And this is a priest saying this.
No, this was the knight.
Oh, the knight.
That was the villain in Timeline, and I think he was also the villain in Dragonheart, if memory serves. I could be wrong.
I thought he was also a priest, because you can have a knight who's also a priest.
Maybe he was also a priest.
It's a dual role.
I don't know. Hey, people can multitask.
So historical review. Take a quick look. This is actually going to take a lot of time, because we're going to be looking at where they made historical mistakes, and these are obvious enough that even we can pull them out. If you take any look at history at all, you'll find that they really kind of blew it on this. Number one, and interrupt me at any time with this because we got a lot of them here. Timeline and rulership in Jerusalem and the region. I think it's important to say right off the bat what events took place, because there are certain claims in the movie that are made concerning Jerusalem, how it was taken over, and you get the impression, if you're just watching this movie without knowing any of the history, you get the impression that the Muslims had Jerusalem forever. And then the Christians came in, massacred everybody, is holding this on. And the Muslims, through Saladin, are being very merciful, temperate, just allowing the Christians to rule things as long as certain things are done. And then the Christians break the treaty with the Muslims, and then all hell breaks loose, and they take over. Saladin takes over Jerusalem again because the Christians could not be trusted. Yeah, that's generally. Would you say that from the movie that
from was the movie? That's the impression.
Okay,
really bad from historical impression, but yes.
So let's take a closer look about who had ownership of Jerusalem over time. Now, I'm not going to go through ancient history with Israel, because
actually I have a whole video on that.
Yes,
I have a 4-minute video just going through real quick critical time frames in Israel's history.
Okay,
all the way up to the modern day today, including this. I touch it, but not in the detail that we're going to hit today. So it's valuable for a general overview.
So you have a video that shows basically what happened, who owned Jerusalem at certain times. Ruled over, I shouldn't say owned, but ruled over Jerusalem and others. And this one clip is showing here the breaching of the walls at the end of the movie when Jerusalem falls. So refer to his video on that. But okay, so a complex history in a nutshell. The Kingdom of Heaven movie simplifies a long, intricate history. And here's an expanded timeline with key events. I'm going to start with the Romans. Okay, the Roman rule, because then before that was the Greeks. You have Israel had fallen, and then it had been taken over by by Assyrians, and then the Babylonians, and the Persians then had the territory. After them, the Greeks, and then the Romans did. Now we're in Jesus' time. So from 63 BC to 395 AD, the Romans had the Israel. Now they captured Jerusalem in 63 and they incorporated it into the Roman Republic. The city was administered as part of a province of Judea where Roman law and culture were imposed. However, they were given a certain amount of autonomy, more so than other provinces were, until 70 AD when the Romans said, we can't take this anymore. We've had enough. And there was a sacking of Jerusalem, the destruction of the temple, and other events like that. So far, so good?
So far, so good. I'm wondering where you get the 350, 395 from, but other than that.
Okay, because
how you broke it up, that's why.
That was when the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire. So
I put them in my notes. I put them all together.
Okay, so they really are. The Eastern Roman Empire is still the same empire, except now they're Greek speaking instead of Latin speaking. it continues on. We've thought about the
still Christian at this point. It's
yes.
Christian before the split. It's now Christian after the split as well.
Yes. Now that was after Constantine had taken Jerusalem.
Yes.
And gotten rid of the Romans had put a temple, I think it was to Zeus and to Venus, on top of the
Temple Mount.
Was it the Temple Mount or was it
sure
Sepulchre? I think it was the Sepulchre.
Sepulchre.
Yeah. So that was the burial place of Jesus. It wasn't the Temple Mount. It was a burial place of Jesus. And they said, forget about it, you Christians. This is what we're going to do. And then Constantine came in, took that out, put a basilica there instead, and it went from there. So the Eastern Roman rule continued from 395 to 638.
638, 637.
Yeah, somewhere around
that
in
time frame. It's kind of weird.
So, and this is the transition of the Roman Empire from west. The west fell, the east continued, and it was interrupted in 614 by Sassanid Persians briefly capturing the city, but it was restored to Byzantine control shortly thereafter. So basically, during that time, Christians could do their thing, and it was just Christians and Jews. Jews were allowed to do their thing. There was some persecution, I believe, of the Jews under Byzantine rule. I'm not entirely sure about that, but then it continued.
Most of the time, Islam did not exist, just FYI.
Yeah.
Just because for some reason, I need to state that.
Yeah. Islam did not exist prior to Muhammad.
Nope, no evidence of it.
So then under the Rashidun Caliphate, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Otherwise called the rightly guided caliphs.
Yes. In 638 AD, Jerusalem was captured by forces under Caliph Umar bin al-Khattab. Is that correct?
Yep, the second rightly guided caliph, according to them.
Yes.
Companion of Muhammad. Also, oddly enough, inspired a lot of the Quran. The whole hijab thing, that was all him.
Yes. Imagine that. Not from Allah himself. So under the Treaty of Umar, this agreement ensured that Christians and Jews could continue practicing their faith under Sharia. And we've already seen what that looks like when we did our review of
lip service, basically.
Their restrictions are so harsh. And if you want to look at a review of what the restrictions are, we're going to be having that next week. We're going to be talking about the myth of the Andalusian paradise, which is a encapsulation of what we also did with Hatun Tash on her channel last week and a couple of weeks before then.
If you want to know if you guys get impatient though and want to check out what Sharia law actually says, the handbook is free online, PDF version. It's called Reliance of the Traveler. And oh my goodness, there's so much in there they don't tell you.
Yeah. I made the mistake of calling jizya a tax. Jizya is not a tax. It is like protection money that you give the mafia. And so I was rightfully...
It's also jizya.
Jizya.
It's not jizya. We're not talking about Deep Space Nine. Although that would be more entertaining than that.
Jizya tax. Yes, I got you.
It's protection money.
Protection money. The mafia comes in.
It can be up to 80%.
Nice place you got here. Be terrible if something bad were to happen to it. Me and my boys, we'll allow you to keep working here, but you got to pay up.
Now, you can get rid of it instantly by just converting to Islam.
You can.
Which is convenient. And then they say, well, there's no compulsion. We never force anyone to convert to it, except for the 80% tax that we put on non-believers.
So are we so good so far in the timeline?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So then you have the Crusader conquest in 1099.
There's so much in between the 2 points.
Okay.
There's back and forth.
You want to cover that real quickly?
Yep.
Real quickly, because we got so much to cover. In the brief 14 hours we're going to be together.
There's at least multiple. After the supposed rightly guided caliphs, it was transferred to another caliphate. There seems to be more of a peaceful transfer. That's the last one we'll see of those. And then, which was a Sunni. And then it was transferred to another Sunni caliphate that came on in. I can't pronounce these names worth a darn.
Oh, come on.
Look at these things.
Okay. Just hit the highlights then.
Okay, the highlights. The Fatimids
Yeah.
Caliphate came in, took over. Now, this is the interesting part. They weren't Sunni. They were
Ooh.
Shia.
Ooh.
This was the Shia Caliphate that came in and took over. And then you had the Turk group come down. They took over Jerusalem for a short period. And they were Sunni. And then, well, the Fatimids came back in. I'm probably butchering that name, and I do apologize for that.
No, Fatimid, that's fine.
Okay. Came back in. They took it over for a short period, and then the Crusaders came down. I mean, it's like a year beforehand. They took Jerusalem back, and then the Crusaders came in. It's like, okay, it's ours now.
So let's just be clear that when the Muslims had it before the Crusader kingdoms came, and by the way, they took it from the Byzantine Empire, which was Christian. And so it was a primary Christian place. It was a holy Christian place. Also, Damascus was a holy Christian place.
Mhm.
Antioch, then down in Egypt, Alexandria was a holy Christian place, because these were seats of Christian bishops that had these areas. And so Islam just took over basically Christian lands. Okay, remember that. They were Christian lands taken over by Islamic forces and not being very nice about it. Now, the siege of Jerusalem under Umar was not that bloody. It was the Crusader conquest. The siege of Jerusalem during that time was nasty. During the First Crusade, the Crusader armies in 1099 captured Jerusalem from the Fatimid Caliphate. So it's all not one big happy family.
No,
here,
no.
right?
In fact, it's changed hands bloodily. I counted 5 times.
Okay.
Between 5, well, like 4 different caliphates. One came back and took it back, but one was just an empire. So there's multiple transfers, multiple bloody transfers. This is not like the Muslims were just here, which is what the movie gives you a feeling that the Muslims were just peacefully living with the Jews and the Christians, and the Jews and the Christians were allowed. In fact, again, the same knight/priest that we talked about again looks at it and says, see, in Jerusalem, we're able to worship. In fact, that's how it was when the Muslims ruled.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that was primarily one of the causes for the Crusades.
Right.
Was that they locked down, and that was the Turk Empire that locked down that area and said, no, we're not going to allow it. You're not allowed to do it. And then that's when the Crusaders
pilgrimages were a big thing back then. And so to make a pilgrimage to a holy site, think about it. Remember, all the holy sites in that area were already taken over by Muslims.
Yes.
Right? So Christian holy sites were gone. It's almost as if, and the most holy place for Christians would be Jerusalem, would be that area where Christ died and rose from the dead. It's as if Christians were to take over Mecca and the Kaaba and say, okay, maybe you can come and worship, maybe not. And, oh, I'm sorry, we just put a church on top of it. Too bad.
Yeah, we got rid of the black stone. And
you can. Church there. Yeah, we put the black stone over here on this little hill. You can go kiss it if you want. But that's basically what had happened during that time, and also to the Jews. So we'll get to the Dome of the Rock Mosque here later. That's one of the important things I want to touch.
Now, just real quick, with Mecca, Christians, Jews are not allowed in Mecca. That's something that is not allowed, and that's the same thing they were applying to Jerusalem as well, saying, okay, no person come in. There were still Christians that lived there under Sharia law, but no, you're not allowed to come here and do a pilgrimage. You're completely outlawed from this town.
And pilgrimages for them at that time were very, very important. This was a way to absolve your sins, which I disagree with theologically, but it was a way to go and to do this. And then this most holy of places was now off limits, and they said, okay, we got to stop this. They sacked it. They took it over in the 7th century. We need to go back and resecure it because this needs to be open.
Yep.
And it wasn't.
Again, this is after Jihad has already been very active for 400 years prior to the First Crusade.
Yeah.
So as far as, well, the Crusade was a holy war and they just went and took it. Yeah, the Muslims started this whole like going after the Christian holy wars. So they were the first ones to use holy wars against Christians in this regard.
Yeah, and this is where
not that they invented holy wars.
This is where the title it comes from with this, is that the picture of the Crusades created in this movie, the influence, the thing that you get is that there's a bunch of hothead Christians that have no idea, no real honor, no real morality. They're going out and they're hitting civilians and they're just taking what they are. They're power hungry and they just want to do this because they're bloodthirsty.
Money and land.
Yep, and they're bloodthirsty.
Same character that we quoted earlier says that towards the end of the movie. It was just all about money and land.
And if you look at the true history of Islam, you see that that is the face that's really there instead of Christianity. And we get into the historical part. We talk about the Templars later. We'll see that that's not the case. Okay, so I'm going to real quickly look at, looks like we got some really good comments here. I probably missed some.
Hey, Yusuf.
Yes. Okay, so Jack Ray says, it sounds worse than having made no movie at all.
Yes. It is damaging.
He said a completely fictional, crappy movie that has names of some of the historical characters. I feel like I need to repent because I gave it a 7. Okay, moving right along. Not saying
by the Muslim standard of how prophets work, I guess I must be a prophet at the beginning.
Ridley Scott trying to say up is down and down is up again. Islam stole the land. Even the Islamic traders preferred to move through Christian-controlled Holy Land because they were safer and not getting robbed. That's
yes,
interesting.
That was a big thing.
Poor Dex.
Dex just yeah.
I love his avatar. So yeah, it's aptly so. I thought that's okay. Jadzia, Jadzia, and they're very close.
Nope.
No. Okay,
nope.
I think they are.
One is an enjoyable character in a movie,
and the other is, Yusuf said, humiliation money. That's basically it. And we had done when we did our review with the tune on this, we one of the images shown, and then we'll have this again next week with more detail and try to get you some really good comebacks. As somebody, some Dawa says, this was a perfect land in Al-Andalus. It was a golden age. I want to be able to have everybody watching this channel to be able to come away with 10 good, snappy answers that would put that all to rest. And we can walk away satisfied with that. I think that's going to be good. So make sure I get this right. Okay, he's back to it. The DS9 2 partner with traveling into 21st century districts full of dhimmis. Dhimmis, yes. Bell riots. Oh, that was supposed to happen later, I think.
Bell riots.
That's part of That's Star Trek lore. We're slipping into Star Trek here. The prediction of the internet. Yes, I think that was Voyager, right? I think they had a couple episodes when they talked about
a long time.
What it was, not the tower, but the elevator, the space elevator. They went back in time and did that. Yusuf, I find it funny how Muslims claim that they were living peacefully with Christians and Jews. Muslims cannot get along with each other.
Well, that's just it. That's why I pointed out with all the different caliphates coming up and taking down, and even with we'll get into that a little bit later, why I think it's so ironic how this movie portrayed Saladin.
He was such a noble character in the movie.
He was, but
didn't he look like Jack Sparrow's father, though?
He kind of did.
I thought I'm not sure the same actor or not, but it looked like if you saw Jack Sparrow's father in was it Pirate Caribbean 3? This guy looked amazingly like him. I think isn't he heavy metal guy? I thought he's actually a musician. Jack said Muslims keep that war going. Christians fought back.
Yes, so the last statement in the movie is like, "In the kingdom of heaven has never found peace in over 1,000 years." I'm like, well, I wonder why.
Yes, now that the infidel is gone, let me slay my cousin. My brother and I slay my cousin, and then with my cousin's gone, I shall slay my brother.
Yep.
One after another. That movie was the first evening out for my son and his wife after their son was born. I babysat. The baby is 19 years old. From what I've heard, the same old premise for the Crusades. Yeah, I would say
Christian bad, greedy Christians come down, peaceful Muslims.
Okay, so let's
Christians kill peaceful Muslims.
I'm gonna make a little bit of a speculation here. After 9/11, okay, so this movie came out 4 years after 9/11, somewhere around that time. So that means that they were
about 4
developing. They were probably filming it within 3 years afterwards. There was right after 9/11, there was a short period of time of unity among Americans. You saw a lot of flags flying and outrage against what Muslims had done. And then almost immediately after that, we got put the brakes on to say, listen, not all Muslims are bad. We need to put balance on this and then go from there. And I think that there is some truth to that, because I believe that there are some God-fearing Muslims that are misguided. There
are many good people who happen to be Muslim,
yes,
who are very bad Muslims, by the way. But that's because they're good people.
Yes. So that's probably a better way to put it. So what happened is you don't want to just find someone, a woman wearing a burqa going to Walmart and beat her up because of 9/11. You don't want to do that. And you don't want to approach people with that regard, but you do need to look at it sober-mindedly and say, this is the type of thing that comes out of those who follow the religion of a caravan robber, rapist, murderer, pedophile, yada, yada, fill in the blank. So you got to keep that balance. We went way too far after that pendulum swung. I think this movie came out as a result of that, to show like, hey, you know what? We can live in tolerance, kumbaya, everybody's peace. It's really the same God anyway, right? So let's just everybody get together, and don't quote me on that because I'm being sarcastic. So I think that's what
Adam Seeker has already told you. They don't understand that.
I know, don't understand sarcasm. I'm sorry. I love sarcasm. Muslims were civil warring from the very beginning. That is true.
In fact, you can even, like I said before, you can see that going back, Sunni, Shia, going back and forth, trying to destroy each other over this.
I had a Muslim roommate for a while, and he told me straight-faced, I don't know if this is taqiyya or not, but he told me straight-faced saying that in Christianity, there's so many different divisions among you, so many different religions, I'm thinking denominations. And in Islam, there's only one. We're unified. Only one. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, Shia, Sunni, anyone?
No, there's that. There's so many breakups. There's so many different divisions and different ways of viewing it, but one of the issues is either they've been told that, so he actually believes that.
Right.
He doesn't realize that that's not actually true. He's not thinking it through logically. I've had that with so many Muslims I've had conversations with. That's like, no, you logically think this through, then it wouldn't be one. But then they would make the argument that, oh, well, you see that group over there isn't really Muslim, so they don't count. Only the ones that can.
Well,
just like the Muslim.
We would say that about Mormons, though.
I had a Muslim come on not too long ago and say that no Jew ever accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Not a single one. Why did all of them reject him?
How about the disciples?
The disciples
and so forth.
All the Messianic Jews that are out there, I guess you don't exist.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
Argument.
He came back and said, well, I don't count those. I don't count them because they're not really Jews then.
Oh my gosh.
Because they accepted Jesus Christ. So if you yeah.
I'm not putting out all comments because there are some in here I don't think are appropriate. Morgan Freeman is appropriate for the inside chat, but not to share with everybody. Morgan Freeman's Azine character in Robin Hood. We're going to be doing that, by the way. We're going to be doing Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves here in a couple of weeks. A couple being round, not saying in 2 weeks. Morgan Freeman's Azine character in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, was a pioneer of that propaganda.
Yeah, he violates so many laws in Islam.
Yeah, including apparently Morgan Freeman thought he was God at one time. So there is that.
I'm just talking about the character.
I know. I'm talking. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the movie.
I'm talking about the movie. I actually like Morgan Freeman. I think he's pretty cool. I love his voice. Dude was there. The whole religion of peace bull was within 1 month. I was mad how wrong that was.
Yeah.
You
Because I
talking about
started hearing
9/11?
Yeah,
Yeah.
immediately after. It's the religion. They hijacked it just like they hijacked the planes.
And then that I think that
Nope.
soon is where the phrase of Islamophobia came out, because I don't think you heard that before then.
No.
And that was like, oh, poor me. You just hate me because of my religion. And because you hate my religion, that makes you racist. No, it has nothing to do with race.
I would point you to Quran 98:6 and Quran 9:29 and Quran 9:30, just as starting points. Not even hating the hadith.
We had near instant pushback. It was so stupid. I would agree that it does need to be balanced. You don't want, like I said, you don't want to start attacking your neighbor, but you need to put it in perspective to say, hey, that religion, it's not just a religion. It is an entire way of life, including a governmental system. And that's one of the problems that Westerners have, is they treat it as, well, we have freedom of religion, but not a governmental system that wants to take over your system of government, turn a republic or democracy into a Shia capital. You look what's happening in the UK right now.
You look
And
at
other
what happened
places.
up in Dearborn.
Dearborn and others. Yep.
I mean, that is the problem. Is Islam requires that Sharia law be enforced. When it comes down to, if you actually read the sources, it requires it. And if you can't, you're not even supposed to be there.
I had a Muslim roommate to 1999 to 2000 college year. He mostly asked me questions. I had no problem in spending hours talking about things, history, and faith. You know what? That's one thing that I found too, with at least some. I wouldn't say Muslims at all, but very open about talking about religion and politics, which are two things in the West, at least in America, which are like, oh, no, don't bring those subjects up, and polite company. But I had long conversations with my roommate too about all. I didn't know as much about Islam then at the time. That if I knew now, then I would have changed.
What kills me, and I've said this multiple times on a lot of different live streams, they don't know. It's of course an authority-based religion that you just take whatever your imam says and run with it, or whatever the dawah is that brought you into this said, and then you don't look at it yourself. And it blows my mind when I'm talking to the Muslims. I'm like, dude, this is your eternity. You're staking everything on this. Your eternal soul, more valuable than anything else you can possibly have, and you're not even doing an ounce of work.
But that's one of the differences between Christianity and Islam, is that, okay, we have the Bible. The Bible is accessible to us. We can read it. Sometimes there's some rough passages in there. Maybe you need some help looking at them, stuff like that. But it's within hand's reach, and you can read it yourself. Where in Islam, you're told that it has to be
in Arabic.
In Arabic, you
right
have to. That's the way to properly read it, right?
And 95% of them don't read it.
It can't. It's that much of a stumbling block. Not only that,
it's hard because it's also not.
Then you have to have all the hadiths in addition to that.
Yeah.
Or a hadith. You have so many, so much you have to read. That's where you have to refer to scholars and say, it's not in my hand. I just, whatever they say, I have to go with.
In Sahih al-Bukhari alone, if memory serves, there are 95 books thicker than the Quran is.
You have to be a scholar to
and
be
that
able
is
to.
just one of the 6 most reliable collections.
Yeah.
It takes forever to read.
Good luck. Whereas the Bible
is sufficient upon itself. And the problem is, you got so much in here. If you read sections in here, you won't know who those people are that's referring to unless you've gone to the hadith.
Mm-hmm. Because that gives you the context
for this.
And the Bible has its own context. This another thing that's different. The Quran does not actually have historical context that you can rely on, and not even in chronological order either. So that's okay. All right. Yeah, so if you got Muslim roommates, talk to them. Understand. I think Westerners, we really need to understand where this is coming from. Azim was just practicing taqiyya with Robin of Locksley. Obviously so, sir. Obviously so. My earliest knowledge of Islam, and like many others, was actually from Lawrence of Arabia when I watched in my late teens. That would be a good one to review. I don't have that on there. Lawrence of Arabia.
Put that one on there. We'll do that one. That one would be a good one. I
got to make a note of that.
How reliable is it?
Lawrence of Arabia?
Yeah.
Very good question. I don't have the answer to. Here's the irony of that. I originally watched that. I'm looking for a pen. I originally watched that.
This is your studio. I have no clue.
No, I'm sorry.
You're like, where's a pen?
I originally watched Lawrence of Arabia in Saudi Arabia. It's the first time I saw it. It was around.
That's kind of funny.
It was in Dammam. And my dad was working there as an engineer for a defense contractor. And we were in the American compound, or the compound for that company. I'm not going to say what the company was. Well, they're defunct now, so it really doesn't matter. But working there with it and seeing Lawrence of Arabia, that was kind of cool experience. It is written. Who is this person? We need a moderator. We need a moderator. Kick some of this riffraff out. And yes. Okay, so there we get the real name. Tommy Brian said, only a Muslim can call a Jew, you're not a Jew, and a Christian, you're not a Christian. I bet they say Morgan Freeman is it's not real Morgan Freeman.
Well, think of that for a second. So if a Christian were to look at a Muslim, say, you're not a real Muslim. And I've had this happen actually between Muslims at an open mic that we were hosting. And one Muslim accused the other Muslim of, you're not a real Muslim. And in Islam, that's a death sentence. Because you're a fake Muslim. That means you're an apostate.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know how they're proud of killing apostates.
Yeah, as recent history shows.
Absolutely. So, yes. Okay. Do you want to get back to the movie?
Yeah. So we're back to the timeline. Crusader conquest. And the Crusader conquest of Jerusalem was bloody. Christians, I would say, went too far with this. There was a massacre. During the First Crusade, Christian army captured Jerusalem from the Fatimid Caliphate. Chroniclers like Fulcher of Chartres, I believe that's how you pronounce it, and Raymond of Aguilar described the siege as marked by a brutal massacre with thousands of Muslims and Jews killed. Now, these are from Christian chroniclers, and so we're not getting like a bias, an exaggeration from the enemy saying, oh, there were 1.5 million people that were killed.
Nope, definitely wrong. Do keep in context that the Muslims were slaughtering Christians en masse as well in a lot of the battles prior to this.
Yeah.
So it was a reaction that went way too far, and I would definitely hold the Christian armies up to a higher standard than I would the Muslims.
If there is any interest from the audience here, from the chat, I am tempted to do a live stream on just war. There is a certain guidelines that are considered from just war. This actually comes from the Middle Ages, and then you can even go back beyond, I believe, to the Greeks, where there were some ways to say these are the rules for a just war. In this case, you have one of the rules is limited civilian casualties. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes there is people that get caught in the crossfire and go from there. But in this case, it went too far.
Yeah, the innocent will die with the rest of us.
The exact figures are uncertain, and medieval chroniclers did not always distinguish clearly between civilian and combatant deaths. The Crusaders saw their actions as divinely mandated, aimed at reclaiming the Holy Land for Christianity. But we're going to get to later, there's a phrase that was used in the movie by a priest or a monk making a proclamation, and we're going to show how that part was incorrect. Okay, do you have anything to add about the conqueror? Okay.
Nope, that's about it.
That's the framework is where we come into where the movie is, because then we get to
100 years later.
Just about 100 years later, a little less. In 1187, the Battle of Hayton, if I don't know if it's Hayton or Hatin, Saladin's forces decisively defeated the Crusaders, leading to the capture of Jerusalem. Now, this is portrayed in the movie. It's portrayed a little bit incorrectly.
Very much so.
It is shown as being in the movie.
It's shown as a hothead just running off and leading an army to his death.
Yeah, that
was not right. Saladin was over there. He besieged a city, took a city. There was a stronghold that was still holding out, a Christian stronghold that was still holding out. Because of that, there was pressure on him that he needed to go and do it. Unfortunately, the path to do it had no water. And because of that, his army was exhausted by the time they ended up in battle.
And they do show that part.
That's true.
In the war, in the movie, and Balin did warn them, don't do it, because I don't know if historically Balin warned them or not, but don't do it because an army survives on water, right? And also food, but water is the big thing.
Yeah, the main point was it wasn't just a hothead decision. It was that there was pressure put behind him, and he did not want to go do it.
So a big part of the movie at the end is the surrender, and Balin comes out and talks to Saladin, and they come to terms. Really tense there. You're not sure if he's actually going to surrender, if Balin's going to stick it out, because he's way outnumbered, outman everything. He's like, this, we're going to fight to the last man. And he did have that intention, but then he did find terms of surrender at the end. In the contrast to the 1099 siege, Saladin negotiated a relatively humane surrender, so it seemed. It wasn't necessary. Allowing many of the inhabitants to leave after paying a ransom, although the siege itself was not bloodless. Now, what was the ransom? Do you have anything on the ransom?
I forget what the goals
I do
were.
have the ransom. Okay. Men were required to pay 20 bezants, women 10, and children 5. Those unable to pay faced the threat of slavery.
No, not a threat. They were sold in slavery.
Now, Balian of Ibelin negotiated with Saladin to allow many, not all, of the poor residents to leave without ransom, though still some faced enslavement. So this was not shown in the movie.
So much enslavement that the slave markets in Baghdad were overwhelmed. Not Baghdad, Damascus were overwhelmed. And you could buy a Christian there for basically three of their whatever the coin was.
This says bezants. I'm not sure.
So you could buy it for 3, and it was an extremely low rate for a slave because they just had so many.
Wow.
And he was kind of ticked that unlike in the movie, Saladin was mad that the Christians didn't, because he'd been going around from Christian city to Christian city, basically saying, you can leave, pay me this, and I'll just let you leave, but you give up. And the very fact that Jerusalem said, no, we're not going to just roll over and take it, he was ticked.
Okay. So does this timeline look like it's pretty good?
Yeah, but there's one other thing that you kind of missed. Remember that caliphate?
Yes.
Remember that caliphate? The Ottoman, the Shia caliphate there. They're not around anymore by that time. Do you know who eliminated them?
Saladin.
Infiltrated them, undermined them, and then destroyed them from the inside.
Ooh. Wow.
He started his own caliphate at that point. Lo and behold, he was Sunni. And he was not nice to Shia. In fact, there's many reports of him executing or leading to the death of those Muslims. There is a statement in here from the main character. Again, look, whenever they're trying to negotiate, be like, you just let us go. The Christians came in here and slaughtered everyone. And I was like, he would have most likely done something very similar to any of the Muslims that were there, considering it was a caliphate. What caliphate it was. So that, okay, yeah, he wasn't that ticked off about it. He's mostly trying just to get it to be able to please his allies that were backing him.
Okay.
To be like a big victory. Look at this. I have taken this great land and great victory. But then again, the Christians are also, at least the Christian priest there is also seen as a spineless individual who just wants to convert to Islam and then repent later. What's his phrase?
Jack Ray said maybe Hughes Aircraft Company. Oh, defense contractor. No. I think I could probably say who it was. There's a company that no longer exists. It was Litton Industries. They actually made microwaves. You could commercial microwaves. You can get them, but they weren't particularly huge. But they did install a communication system with surface to air missiles that ended up being used in the Iraq War. So this is early 80s, mid 80s when, I'm sorry, not early 80s, mid 80s when that took place. So, and then Thomas Hall, the movie seems to suggest that lives are more important than anything. On a surface level, I'd agree. The historical Balian was born in the Holy Land. It was his home, some things worth dying for.
Yeah.
And we'll get to a minute on who Balian actually was in the movie. Took a lot of license with his background. It wasn't true. It dawned on me recently that John of Damascus lived in Damascus while it was ruled by Muslims. And if you guys get a chance, I'm going to do a plug for the Christian Sodium channel. He does a lot of early Christian writings, church fathers, historical documents. Fairly interesting. If you enjoy that type of thing, then please do take time to check out his channel. So now we get to, let me go from some more here. This is the fall of Jerusalem. And I thought this is a pretty nice cinematic switch where you see it just gets cold, basically. There's all these bodies that are there, and then it switches out.
I mean, he held him right there at as far as tactics go in the movie. Showing it. I don't know how historical that is because they didn't, they bombarded it like that, yes, but they also undermined it. They dug underneath.
Right. Yeah, showing all the mass. It was very bloody. But it's also a very bloody time there, too. So it's very difficult for us to apply some of our standards to that time, saying, oh, my gosh, I can't believe they would do all this. But that was the case. So another thing that was historically not accurate was Balian of Ibelin himself. Now, in the film, Orlando Bloom's character is depicted as a blacksmith, a French blacksmith, who becomes a knight and defends Jerusalem after a quick rise in status. Now, in the movie, he ends up being the son of Qui-Gon Jinn, and Qui-Gon does cheat. I don't know. Qui-Gon, it taught him how to use his sword, but apparently his lightsaber, the Kyber crystal, wasn't working correctly, and it was just locked into like a physical status. But anyway, he taught him, and then he brought him to Jerusalem and promptly died, and then that elevated him to the status of his father. I think he was a baron in the movie. In the real history, the real Balian of Ibelin was a nobleman, not a commoner, like was shown in the movie. And they make a big deal of that with his relationship with others, including the Queen of Jerusalem.
Yeah, the one that's sleeping around. It literally shows most of the Christians as just adulterous heathens.
Yep.
Which actually would align more with Islamic history, with Islam. These workers are handy for more than one thing, according to them. Hey, you don't know who's underneath there?
No, you don't.
DJ,
you know, that's why Jacob had to marry several times. I got the wrong one again. The real Balian of Ibelin was not a nobleman. He was
drunk.
He was a nobleman and not a commoner, and had a long established role as a knight and a politician in the Kingdom of Jerusalem. He played a prominent part in the defense of Jerusalem in 1187, but his background was much more aristocratic than it was depicted in the movie. So, wrong about that one, guys. So, what else we got here? The Templars and the hanging incident that happens at the beginning of the movie. In one scene, Balian encounters Templars who are hanged for killing Arabs during a time of supposed peace.
Oh, and that's something that the movie does the entire time. Arab means Muslim in the movie. It seemed that they were inflating those all the time.
Mm.
Back and forth. And it's like, no, that's a nationality. That's not.
That's an
That's
ethnicity, a race,
not a religion.
Right. It originated there, but it's not. Everybody who is Muslim is not an Arab. Historical analysis. The reality of the incident. There's no strong evidence in primary or secondary historical sources that confirm that such a mass execution of Templars occurred due to their killing of Arabs during a truce. While the Crusader states were certainly prone to internal conflicts and extrajudicial actions, the notion of widespread hangings for this reason appears to be a dramatic invention rather than documented evidence. So, surprise, surprise, that was not true. But it does set the tone of what's happened later in the story. This is earlier when Balin first comes in. These guys are being hung. And by the way, if you look at the movie, you can tell who the bad guys are because the bigger the cross, the badder they are.
The badder they are.
The bigger, badder.
Yep, bigger,
right?
badder.
Bigger, badder.
More Christian, badder.
Bigger, badder, Buddha. The turbulent atmosphere in Jerusalem and its environs did see sporadic events of violence, even among fellow Christians against local populations, but no record confirms a systematic policy or event matching the film's depiction. And as a historical source for this, check out The Crusades, The Authoritative History of War in the Holy Land by Thomas Epsbridge. And I'm going to check the chat real quick to see what we got on here. Jack Ray said, but it was Ridley Scott who taught him the farce. No, the farce does not exist. It is all a lie. And there we go with this. The Templars, going off not just the beginning when they have the Templars being hung, but the Templars' treaties and violations. The movie tends to show that the Templars acted as the aggressors who deliberately broke treaties, attacking civilians, and provoking Saladin's justice upon Jerusalem. Would you say that's...
Definitely, yes. I'd say that's how the movie portrays it. Not that Saladin was going around gathering up an army in order to take Jerusalem. By no means was that a thing that was happening.
No. Saladin was just like, okay, you guys...
just chilling.
Go ahead, do your thing. Just make sure that you are tolerant and peace-loving and use the right pronouns, and everybody is fine. You just do your thing, right? And then that was the treaty. Some hotheads, the Templars, especially the Templar leader and the guy who wanted to be king of Jerusalem, pushed it. They were bloodthirsty. They wanted to start a war and attack civilians, a civilian caravan.
Yeah. No, Saladin was going around. He was going to attack Jerusalem. He was just waiting for a provocation. And there was a sort of a raid thing happen with a rogue knight that gave him the opportunity to use that as a
pretext
to attack.
Yeah.
And that's what led it.
Just waiting for the wrong move to be made. Were the Templars the aggressors? The Templars were a militaristic order with a reputation for decisive action in battle. However, historical records do not support the idea that they were systematically broke formal treaties by attacking civilians. Their operations were governed by a mix of martial discipline and a code of conduct that was subject to the norms of the period.
And they also helped establish a good trade route protection on the roads. That's part of what they ended up contributing.
Yeah, so there were many military orders at that time. You do see military orders that are in Spain. In my book, The Healing Stone, we do talk about the Order of Calatrava, because there was a Battle of Calatrava that was also done during that time. You do see that. You do see the hospitators. We have hospitals. Where did that come from? Where did the word hospital come from? Because of Christians that had established these organizations.
Banks were established. It was one of the Crusaders established the banks system. It was a concept of you give your amount to me, I give you a piece of paper that you then carry with you that's not valuable to anyone else other than you.
A receipt.
Yep. And then you can go to the Crusader group over in wherever you're going to and exchange that for either money or something else.
A lot easier than carrying all that heavy coin.
Yes.
In travel.
A lot safer too, because
no one else could use that
no one else
receipt.
can rob you for it. And that was something they were extremely concerned about.
So did they break this treaty that was talked about? There's no clear universality accepted treaty that delineated specific forms regarding the protection of civilians between Crusaders and Saladin. When Jerusalem fell in 1187, Saladin's negotiating terms primarily were based on pragmatic concerns, allowing some of the inhabitants to leave in exchange for ransom rather than enforcing a pre-existing treaty violation. So this whole concept in the movie about the treaty was bunk. There was really did not exist. So there is also another part in the movie too, and this kind of goes hand in hand with this whole question here. In the movie, a random monk or priest declares to passerbys, "To kill an infidel is not murder. It is the path to heaven." Remember that scene when he says that?
Yeah, I know what book that comes out of.
Yeah, that is not Christian
That's not
doctrine.
Christian doctrine at all.
No.
But yeah, it's sold as Christian doctrine in this movie, being that is how you get to heaven, is you go there and you kill these Muslims and you instantly get into heaven, which that would be a concept.
So they were charged to take the land, not that you get credit for killing Muslims or Jews or pagans or anybody else. That was not a part of the agenda. Nowhere in Christian doctrine does it say that. This was neither a common belief nor one held by the church. It does not align with the teachings of the Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church at the time. The church has consistently condemned the notion that killing non-believers is justified or leads to heavenly reward. Murder is a grave sin, a mortal sin. The Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches that human life is sacred because from its beginning, it involves a creation action by God and remains forever a special relationship with the Creator, who is its sole end. He's the only one who should be ending another life. Now, there are different situations in warfare where combatants will challenge and kill other combatants in self-defense. There are some regulations where that would be allowed, but not you kill some random non-Christian, you get a free ticket to heaven.
No.
Now, where does that idea come from?
Again, it seems like it might be plagiarized from something else.
Yeah, I just can't put my finger on it.
Something in Arabic.
In Arabic, probably. Yeah, you're probably right. Probably right. So taking a quick look at the comments here.
Although I did have a Christian on my last call-in live stream try to convince me that God was against all killing and murder. And that's wrong in every way, shape, or form.
Truth Defenders, thank you for joining us. He said that Robert Spencer did a great short review on the Crusades in his book, The Politically Incorrect Guide to Islam and the Crusades. And Bill Warner did a great video contrasting them to Jihad. I think it's a Bill Warner video that I'm thinking we should do a review on that.
There's that. There's also Yasama Duck does a great.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
The Crusades. There's so much more than I do.
Yeah. So he has a course that he will teach, Usama Dadak. And it's how long?
I forget.
Like 8 hours or so.
It's some long.
It
is in depth.
Be prepared to take notes because he
might be actually 16.
Knows his material. I'm telling you, he's an entertaining teacher.
He's
to
good.
listen to. He's
just don't ever cut his time down. Elle found this out. Never cut his time down. Just letting you know ahead of time.
Yeah, you had him at the convention, correct?
Yes, Seek and Share Truth convention. That was a conference, but
conference.
He's been there. He was a speaker for 2 years there.
Yeah,
it was very nice having him.
And hopefully you can get him back this next time.
L's the one that's handling that. I don't know if he has signed on again.
I hope so. He is.
But it's always fun.
He's passionate. He's very good, and he knows his material.
Yep.
And he will. When he was on stage and we had all the speakers up there, I would say that he dominated, not in a bad way, but he's got this command voice. Great Egyptian brother. So,
yes.
So
comment down there. Yes, he is. He's a good friend.
Usama Dadak is hilarious. He is. Yes, he's very entertaining. You could listen to him to 8 hours.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't think you'd be bored. So and give the background for the Crusades and all the history there, especially with Palestine. Talking about the history of Palestine too. Very good about that. Carol mentions they use letters of credit for pilgrims to pay for things.
Yes.
So I think that goes in line with what you were saying about the
That's
banks.
exactly it. That was the starting of the concept of the banks. That point was very, very nice to have.
So another aspect of the movie that we can take a look at, where it gets things wrong, is the Muslim treatment of Jews and Christians in Jerusalem. The film portrays the film Kingdom of Heaven depicts both the Christians and Muslims as being mostly part of religious tolerant society during their reign in Jerusalem. Periods of persecution happened under both. In addition, during Muslim rule, so persecutions happened under Christians and Muslims during their rule of
Now you're talking about history.
Jerusalem. True history, right?
True history.
Not
what's talked about.
Not about what's happened. So there were periods of general peace and then back and forth persecution, and you did see that in Islamic Spain as well, back and forth. But mostly, all the time during that period, dhimmis, who were non-Muslims, dhimmis, sorry, non-Muslims. Is that Jadzia dhimmi? Dhimmis faced the same restrictions that they did in Jerusalem as they had under Islamic Spain. And I refer you to the previous videos that we had with Hatun Tash and the one that's coming up.
It almost seems like they were using the same sort of code of laws in both situations.
What would the name of that code of laws be?
Sharia.
Oh, I've never heard of that one before. Now, all religious places were not revered. Now, during the time the Christian, their time of during the Kingdom of Jerusalem, so this is a Crusader kingdom, the Christians, there was the destruction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Mm-hmm. When the Crusaders took Jerusalem in 1099, one of their first acts was to take over that mosque. While the building itself was not destroyed, it was converted into a Christian church and used as a headquarters for the Knights Templar. This repurposing was viewed as a desecration by Muslims. But let me
remind you
that it is a Muslim tactic to taking over a land, to convert if not burned or destroyed, for the most part, taking over, especially the big, nice architecture Christian churches, and converting them into mosques. You can Hagia Sophia is an example. Now, Christians were tolerated in having places of their own worship, but they could not restore them. They could not rebuild them. They could not build new ones unless there was express permission from the ruling party to be able to do so, which was generally rare. And the same thing for Jews, too. You got a Christian building, you got a Christian church, one of the shabby old ones, you can have that. And if it starts breaking down, too bad for you.
Paddle. You might as well convert now.
Now, Christians took the Dome of the Rock Mosque. It was similarly repurposed and converted into a church known as the Templum Domini, Temple of the Lord. While not destroyed, this conversion by the Christians was also viewed as a symbolic affront to Islam. Oh my gosh, they did that. That's terrible.
I just find that incredibly hilarious, considering the fact that I've had so many Muslims in my comment section boast about how they turn churches into mosques.
Yeah.
All the time. We're just buying all your churches and turning them into mosques. And it's like, and according to you, that's desecration.
Now, there were other places that Crusaders, there were reports of Crusaders demolishing mosques in other parts of the region. In towns captured by the Crusaders, mosques were often looted or destroyed, although this was not universal practice. It was not complete. It was not done all over the place. It was done in certain locations. Now, you can have, this is a problem with war. You will have people that take things too far in war. In modern day, it's the same thing. Modern warfare, you have people that go too far, and there are problems that are created. But having said all that, the Muslims did not revere religious places themselves. The most sacred Jewish place, what would that be?
Temple Mount.
The Temple Mount. The Temple Mount was desecrated by building the Dome of the Rock Mosque. It started construction in 685 to 686, and Abd al-Malik intended for the Dome of the Rock to be a religious monument of victory over the Christians and Jews that would distinguish Islam's uniqueness within the Abrahamic religions, setting off Jerusalem as a home of the older two Arabic. So they said, we're taking over Jerusalem. We know this is a place for you two, but this is ours. We're taking it over. And it was destined to rival the many other Christian domes. The dome that is there was to be better, more beautiful, bigger than anything else, especially bigger than the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and others. So this is a domination thing to say that we are dominating. So before the Christians came in and repurposed these other buildings and removed some, this was a practice done by Muslims throughout the region in coming in and taking over Christian lands and saying, we're going to repurpose everything. We're going to destroy other buildings and so forth.
But it's only bad when Christians do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So to this day, you have that building there on the holiest place.
I still don't get why they
Jews.
Allow it. And there are laws there that Jews can't pray, Christians can't pray on it, Muslims can.
On the Temple Mount.
On the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
It's
try to do that with the Kaaba. See what happens.
Right. They'll kill you for even trying to go in it.
Okay. So taking a quick look at the chat. That's it. I see what you, Jadzia, did there. Yes. See, it doesn't go.
Finger Jadzia Dex.
That's great. That's great. And then,
yep. Okay.
Behind this video, but yes, Usama said yes again.
Cool. So he'll be at our next conference.
Okay, that is good. So looking forward to that one. So that'll be good to see. Another thing that we could look at is Saladin and the brutality of his campaigns. The film Kingdom of Heaven depicts Saladin as an honorable and chivalrous leader. That he, historically, while Saladin is indeed remembered for his magnanimity, especially his treatment of not imprisoning and killing all the civilians in Jerusalem and enslaving all the good ones, which, that was very magnanimous of him. Yeah.
He didn't have to do all of them.
He didn't do all of them.
Made sure that the slave markets were overfull.
Whatever your right hand possesses. His military campaigns were still a part of harsh realities of medieval warfare, which involved brutal tactics. Like you said, he even went after other Muslims. And they did that. So. They did that in Al-Andalus too, because there was the Maliki school of jurisprudence that they said, this is the way things are. Any other school, any other variation, we don't care.
Out.
Not only that, but they could be executed if that were the case. So there were things that were done by Saladin. He in the movie, he is viewed as being this very noble, just character. That's not necessarily historically accurate.
Nope. In fact, he once he got in there, he ripped out all the Christian stuff.
Yeah, and
everything just tore everything down.
There is a scene in the movie where there is this golden cross. It's a good sized one. That he comes in and it's fallen on the ground. He takes it up and gently places it on a table. That's not.
Nope. It would be. He would not have touched it.
The we when we looked at Al Andalus, we were at the Muslim Spain. One of the letters that I believe it was a scholar that was referred to says, "What should we do with?" Somebody asked him, "What should we do with all these crosses and the churches that we're burning and sacking and everything?" And he said, "Well, the golden crosses." He said, "Melt them down.
Gold's gold.
Gold's gold. You know,
take it.
You are. It's not. It's permissible for you to do that, even though it is a pagan symbol. You're allowed to do that." Saladin's forces decisively defeated the Crusader armies in the Battle of Hattin in 1187. So this is right before the fall of Jerusalem. Contemporary accounts, such as those found in Bin al-Athir's chronicles, detail the ferocity of the battle. While the surviving Christians suffered greatly, overall the slaughter was a part of a larger, brutal campaign that was going on. So this was not, he's not an angel going through.
Nope. In that battle, he again took captives, more slaves for the markets. He also took, for those who weren't compatible with being slaves, too aggressive or too well-trained for slavery, he gave the option of the standard good option that Muslims give, which is convert or die.
Yeah.
And they said, screw you, they were beheaded. Yes.
It was in the movie at the end of this, he kills the leader of the Templars and the king of Jerusalem, Guy, at the time, and because it was such a slaughter, he went through and just kills him. Actually, the king of Jerusalem he keeps because he says a king cannot kill a king, and then he parades him.
Now that's historical. That's according to what I heard is actually historical.
Yeah,
that was actually correct.
Yeah,
not the parading part, but the not killing part, because he gave him a cup of water, and then if you give a guy a cup of water, then you're not supposed to kill them according to the culture that they were in. But he specifically didn't give it to the other guy because he definitely wanted to behead the other guy, because the other guy is the guy that went all rogue and decided to.
That was an interesting scene. If you forgive the fact of the motive of the ruler Templars going and just both of them being bloodthirsty, just looking for war. If you take that out of the fact, it is an interesting theme how that the whole cup of water thing is handled.
Yep.
So another aspect that we could look at that is not historically accurate is the religious conflict and tolerance that is shown in the film. We have there's a strong emphasis in the film about religious tolerance, with Balian advocating for peaceful coexistence between Christians and Muslims. The portrayal of religious leaders, especially the Knights Templar, paints some religious zealots willing to sacrifice lives for the crusade. Now, that's how the movie does it. Mm-hmm. In reality, in history, while there were some periods of relative tolerance in the Crusader states, religious conflict was far more complex and less idealistic than depicted. The Crusades involved widespread violence, with both sides committing atrocities in the name of faith. The film downplays the fanaticism and brutality of those Muslim forces, instead highlighting more of the brutality of the Christian forces. So it really shows a very imbalanced view of what happens there with that. The defense of Jerusalem. So what happens in the film is that Balian takes command of Jerusalem's defenses and organizes the citizens to resist Saladin's forces, and ultimately surrenders the city under honorable terms. And this is I believe the scene where he goes out and talks to Saladin to surrender the city. It's like, what are we going to do here? He says, we're going to fight to the last man. And he decides there to surrender the city.
that was actually historical. He basically, according to what I've heard, is Saladin came there and said, "No, I'm going to basically kill you guys. We're done." He pushed back and said, "Well, in that case, we're just going to kill. In order for you to take the city, we will kill every Muslim that is in it, burn down every mosque, every holy site, and then come out to fight you.
Yeah.
So we will burn this place to the ground unless you give us favorable terms." And then he said, "Okay, fine, you can ransom the people. And if you ransom them, then okay, they can leave. If not, I get my slaves."
Yeah, so that part was different when in the movie with the whole negotiation that taking place. It was not just, oh, I am so merciful and peaceful, you can take the civilians and go.
That's what it really looked like. It was like, I'm merciful and peaceful. I just want the city. You guys can just go ahead and go, and I'll promise safe passage to everyone for free. It's all going to be fantastic. You'll have a great time. Yeah, that's not what happened. And of course, you had the main character be like, "But the Christians came in here and slaughtered all the Muslims," and he's like, "Well, I'll just forgive." And
I'm not that guy.
I'm not that guy. Yeah. The answer is, those were Sunni, not Shia. Well, they were Shia, not Sunni. He's Sunni. He don't give a crap. It's like, oh, okay.
So Tommy Bryan said, "Isn't it wonderful that the number one tactic of the religion of peace is to mock and undermine the holy places of the land they invade? Peaceful indeed."
And not just, the land they invade. And it's just, think about, there is no place on earth that the Muslims control that they haven't invaded. Even going back to Mecca and Medina, both of those were conquered.
Yeah.
All of the land controlled by the Muslims were conquered by the sword in one way or the other. Now, I think in some places they use slow infiltration in order to slowly take it over, but eventually it ended up by the sword.
Yeah, I was going to say that sub-Saharan Africa might be a bit of an exception with the trade and other means that they did to take over the region. But once they had that region, it was sword or else.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. They infiltrate, and then once it gets up to a large enough population, either convert or die.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely a policy. And you can see the repercussions for that right now with like Nigeria, the Boko Haram and the problem in the north, Muslim north, and the Christian south, the issues that are going on there. We don't really hear a whole lot about it in the West, but it's definitely a problem for them, even today. So great repercussions. Great, not in terms of fantastic, but great in terms of scope, reaching. So when you get down to it, the movie The Kingdom of Heaven is a mostly fictitious view of the fall of the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem. The movie paints some Christian groups as being barbaric, especially the Knights Templar, and all of the Muslim groups as tolerant, just, fair, and merciful. And we know that really does not match.
I got to interrupt. There was one Muslim who is not.
And who is that?
One of the very first ones that the main character met once he got to the Holy Land. He wanted the horse.
Yes.
And he ended up killing him. And that was actually, at that point, I was looking at the movie set because it's been a long time since I've seen it. I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is optimistic. I mean, that makes sense.
Maybe it's balanced.
Maybe it's balanced. Maybe it's not horrible because it's shown the Christians as bad. There has been the one reference to they worship the same God, which is a bunch of bullcrap. But I was hopeful that it would pull itself out, and no, it didn't. It didn't. He was the exception, not the rule. Whereas the Christians were the exception if they were.
So I'm going to throw this last comment in here. Liam Neeson is in this movie. Does anyone get taken?
Nope.
I think the people that get taken are the audience. They get taken in by misconception that the Christians were the aggressors. The Christians were the ones that are the breakers of treaty. That they're unjust. They're the ones that go after the civilian, ones that cause all this problem, and that the Muslims are, by and large, ruled by tolerantly with this with a sense of.
In addition to that, they also again, it's just they play the act of defense, but an act of greed and of personal gain.
Wow.
That's what it comes down to, and it's false on all.
Yeah, I would have liked to have. I would have felt a lot better about the movie, and maybe it would actually justify it a 7, had they shown a better balance of what was going on. I think that at this time, post 9/11, people readjusting to the idea of being attacked by jihadis. How do we respond to that? And this paints an incorrect picture of the time, both then, across all of the Muslim world, including today. The picture of to say that, yeah, this is going to happen. I think when the numbers are small, under 2%, the claim for Islam is that we're just all the same. Once it gets up to a higher percent, maybe 15, 20%, that is no longer the claim that we're all the same.
No.
You are an infidel, not worthy of life.
Good
Or at least
point.
under my boots, showing humility.
Now, real quick question. What's your score now?
It was a 7.
It was a 7. It was 7. Did it go up during this live stream?
It did not go up during this live stream.
It didn't go up to. Did it stay the same during this live
It
stream?
did not stay the same during this live stream.
It didn't stay the same.
I would say probably a 4. I have to give it points for theatrics. For the
You have to give it points
for the theatrical
theatrics.
presentation.
But that's gone. If 5's the average, that's gone from above to below.
That is true. That is true.
And if 5's like, it's tolerable, it's okay.
I'm repenting of my wayward thoughts about putting it higher than it needs to be. Next week, we are going to be doing a reprisal of the myth of the Andalusian paradise. And we're going to, the goal of this is to take what we've talked about before and boil it down to a handful of quick statements that are founded in historical accuracy, that are not just like Western sources, things that are maybe Muslim sources themselves, who show Muslim Spain as not being the ideal that Dawa's claim is saying, oh, we need to get back to this. Yeah, they would like to get back to it, but it's not going to be a place that you would want to live or anybody would want to live who does not follow Maliki school of jurisprudence. It is not a good place to live. So we're going to take a look at that, and I think the goal is to give you a handful of responses that you can say, boom, 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 right off the top of your head as a reply to that claim. So any last, what's coming up on your channel? Do you have anything that you'd like to talk
tomorrow, about? I will be doing a reaction with the Apostate of Allah. We'll be going through and seeing some of the Dawa reactions to the Quran burner's death from Saladin's death of last week. We've got some Dawas who have made posts about it. We're going to see their reactions, see how they mourn his death or celebrate it. I'll give you a guess on which one it is.
That's right. That's right. Again, thank you all for your participation. Great comments. And we look forward to seeing you again.
No, you got to hit the end button. It's the end button right there. You're above it right now. You still have a lot of comments too. So there's that too.
Should I look at the comments first?
I mean, at this point, you've already messed up the end. So why not?
All right. We'll take a look at the comments. Okay, so this is a bonus section. We're taking a look at comments here. Let's see. Okay, wait. Wow, we got a bunch of comments here. True Defender, good read. When is it right to fight? By Robert Morley. Yeah, so there's some good questions about Just War with that. It's been all better for a minute or two, but it was bad for a few minutes. What's she referring to? Do you know?
Don't know.
Okay, well, I figured you would know. My number is 0. Wow.
Yeah, she did not like it.
From 1 to 10,
she
gives it
she
0.
was like, "Is it over yet? Is it over yet? Is it over? Are they done? Are they done? Are they done?"
Thomas Hall says, "I still give it a 5. You can have that if you disagree with. Use it for good." From a polemic stance, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, but I think that it's
conversation
a lot more people, though. I think it's going to cause a lot more bad than it would cause good. But then again, this movie didn't really do the most successful.
I always look, even when we look at other movies, secular movies, we always look for a Christian theme that can be pulled out to say this is. So I think he's right in this to say that this could be used as an example. It could be used. Yeah, hopefully. This is what Hollywood says. Here's how Hollywood is wrong.
I still give it a 1.
You're infinitely,
which is weird because my wife normally rates things higher than
you're infinitely higher than her, and she usually doesn't give it a numeric rating either.
No,
it does not deserve anything for Theatrics. They made the evil trickery worse. Okay, I'll grant you that. Good night, kids.
Good night, kids.
I'd rather
we're still here.
I'd rather evil show itself. Movie tells you who they are. That is true. That is true. Okay. So again, thank you, everyone. It's been good. And I think we're just learning more as we dig into this history to find out what
just going on. She really did not like
so
the movie.
Moving right along to the end. Thank you all again, and we will see you next time.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.